Hello, Param. How are you?
Hello, sir. I'm all good, sir. It's a pleasure to be here, share a few moments with you.
So, this is Jawahar Sir class. We have around 11,500 people joining us every day from across the world.
Okay,
And
sir.
this is the first in the series of youth talks. The
Okay, sir.
prime aim of youth talks is to see that the world around, politicians are talking, bureaucrats are talking, teachers are talking, principals are talking, everybody is talking, parents are talking, but the youth are not talking. And we are
Yes,
talking about the youth and children. And we are not able to understand what is it that the youth want, what is it that the school children want, what is it that the careers are they are looking for, and what is it that the college students are looking for. So I am trying to engage with them and
yes,
first
sir.
hand try and understand what is it that they want. So I'll put a set of questions. You can answer them freely. There is no
Yes, sir.
inhibition what anybody thinks, whether the school thinks in a certain way, whether the society thinks in a certain, or whether the politicians think. We are not bothered. This is a freewheeling interview.
Yes, sir.
So Param, you are at home, I think, in Manipur.
Yes, sir. That's
Which
true.
school do you study?
Sir, I study in the Assam Valley School, sir. It's in Assam Valley, Param.
Okay, it's supposed to be one of the best schools in India. Uh, and you are a residential student there.
Yes, I am a residential student.
So the first question is, uh, post the COVID-19 situation, do you think residential schools will be the same?
Sir, in my personal opinion, I think there will be a lot of changes because the entire structure of our education system, we will see a paradigm shift in it. Because now social distancing is a norm. Because earlier in classes, we used to have around 30 to 35 students studying in one classroom. Now I think there will be a lot of changes in terms of the structure of the classroom. For example, like now I think uh, pupils will be coming alternate days, or maybe there will be a lot of reduction in the number of pupils in the class. And basically, and for a residential school, I think it's going to be a problematic scenario because we are all staying there. It's not only the students, because
Yeah,
it's also the teachers, also the staff, helpers who work there. So it's a cluster of, it's a kind of society in itself. So I think in
okay.
residential school, I think there will be problems looming large, but I think definitely we'll come up with solutions and proper measurements to
Deal
curtail
with
this
this. Yeah,
entire
yeah,
scene.
yeah. Yeah. But tell me one thing. Uh, this social distancing or physical distancing that you say,
Yes, sir.
how does it affect friendships in residential schools?
Sir, yes, it definitely will affect friendship. No, when I say friendship, it to a certain sense, because I think now it's time for the youth to be mature enough to understand what the world is currently going through. For example, if I have my best friend right beside me, I'll hug him on his shoulder, or probably we walk to the school together. Or girls, they tend to hold hands with each other and come along together. So I think all this, but then this needs to change. So I think youth will understand, and we are mature enough that what is currently going on in this world, and then what all we can do and what all we are not supposed to do. So I
Okay.
think in that sense, maturity will play a huge role, and then it's not only us, it's all of us that we need to understand how the situation of the world currently is.
Okay. Now, given this fact that teenagers are supposed to be very emotional, uh, uh, tell me one thing, that uh, not just in residential schools, any school for that matter, uh, these relationships between boys and girls and boys and boys, uh, how does it does it look to you that will love reduce between these in these relationships?
So that's a very interesting question, and I would love to present my take on it.
Okay.
Because I think it is very common, and in my personal opinion, I believe it's a human nature and tendency in our time, like in our teenage years, that we do fall into certain circumstances where we develop some kind of relationship, romantic relationship with the opposite sex, or in today's world, even the same sex. So I think we we need to curtail on certain, and so to be very honest, I do not think that we in our teenage years, in our youth, we haven't reached that level of the intensity where we need to curtail measures in terms of this, because so I believe that the schools, residential schools, they are very strict on all these terms,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
they're not going to let us do whatever we want. So definitely, because earlier in a pre-COVID world also, there were a lot of steps. There's still in my school also, there are a lot of steps taken by the teachers to kind of settle off all these COVID issues. So in a post-COVID world, I think situation will be slightly different, because in terms of how people are going to perceive each other, because now we cannot roam around with each other sticking close all the time like how we used to do before. So I think that's my take on it, sir.
Very good, very good. Now, are you in touch with the environment? Assam Valley is supposed to be a very, it's in the nature.
Yes,
so
it's very much in the nature.
In the nature. So, you see these days when there is a lockdown, there is a situation where there are no vehicles on the road, or very less number of vehicles. And there is a huge reduction in the pollution. So that's a blessing in disguise in terms of the lockdown that we are facing. But do you think that this is what is required to bring the environment to this stage?
Sir, as you said, it is almost like a blessing in disguise. But then this is not the true essence of our education. It shouldn't be a pandemic causing, making us do things which we're actually supposed to do as a civic citizen of this world. We don't need a pandemic to realize our importance of the environment. It should be it's a moral education. It's ethical learning. It's an ethical learning. So that all of us need to imbibe on ourselves.
But what is it that is wrong? Why don't we take care of the environment the way it should be taken care, and only realize when fear comes in between?
Yes, sir, exactly. That's what my previous point was. Sir, we have, over the years, we have kind of developed a tendency where we need a certain push factor so that we are able to perform something good. And in this scenario, this pandemic has been the push factor. And it's what I'm trying to say is we don't need a pandemic to bring about the change that we want to see in our world. It should be our moral binding that keeps us going. And sir, the reason why we need a push factor is because the changes that we are able to visually see are very minimal if there isn't a certain extensive amount of push. So in this scenario, the present scenario, we're being able to see that external push. That's why we're being a little bit more concerned about our environment.
Okay. Last question is, do you see something that you think from your mind is what should happen in our education system, which is currently not happening, or which you might not be liking as of now? So any changes you want to see?
Yes, sir. So in my opinion, I believe what the youth wants is diversity. And when I say diversity, I'm not saying that we're being deprived of it, but in a sense that to provide us a holistic system of education, where not only book knowledge is taught, but also many other forms of education. So we have the freedom of knowledge to figure out our areas of interest. But the problem is that many of the students, many of us, especially in the rural areas and the poor, do not have the proper facilities of education. And even more importantly, they do not have the exposure to the different kinds of education. And here I would like to emphasize on the phrase different kinds of education, because in my limited knowledge, I believe that there's a common misunderstanding and a sense that when we say education, it is only academics. But that's merely, I believe, one aspect of the many other aspects of education. Education, I believe, is the holistic development of an individual. And especially for the youth in our country, I think there's a lack of this holistic approach in our education system, be it on the fields of cultural activities, sporting activities, or moral or ethical education. But having said that, I also agree that there are a lot of very good schools in our country which successfully inculcates all these holistic approaches. but that's a very limited and minimal section of our population, if
Yeah,
you see.
that's
So what I'm trying to say is the majority of the people cannot afford these luxuries. So in my sense, I think that there should be a more centralized, holistic approach of diverse education for one and for everyone in this country. And I think that's what the youth wants and what the youth needs desperately. Only because only such an approach can lead the youth to expand their mind and find the true essence of life.
okay. So, just an adjunct to the previous expression that you made, that the freedom of choice should be there with the youth in terms of education. Is the parent reason to curb the freedom of choice?
Yes, sir, to a certain extent, but I do not blame, in my personal opinion, I cannot blame the parents because I think the system is such. For example, if I need, after my 12th, if I am supposed to go to a very good school and probably in DU or anywhere else in our country, I need a good college. For a good college, I need a very good cutoff. Like, for example, I need a 98% or a 99%. So I think that academic pressure from the parents is natural. So I think there has to be a first change in the system before we talk about the paradigm shift that we need to see in the mindsets of the people. I think system plays it large.
Thank you very much, Param. It was a very mature interview for a grade 12 student. I can see a
Thank
bright
you so
future
much.
ahead for you. And how's the Northeast doing?
So I think the Northeast is doing pretty well. And then in terms of this pandemic, we can see all the greenery everywhere. And for me personally, I live near the hills. So it's a pleasant scenario because pollution is less, fresh air is there. And then Northeast, we're enjoying it. We're having fun here. And then in terms of education, I think Northeast has a long way to go. And it is it is so to say, a developing sector in terms of education.
Goodbye for now from Youth Talks. Param,
Okay, so
pleasure
thank you so
talking to
much.
you.
Thank you for having me, sir.
And best of luck for your future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.